So I think I was telling you about my Raven brew,
Yep.
and my chronic group did not meet this week, and I didn't catch up with the Girl Scouts either this week.
Really?
No, they're in mad cookie sales right now.
Oh,
So
let me tell you something. For years, that was the worst thing. My daughter was a Girl Scout, and we live in the Northeast, so this is like snow, snowy, cold, nasty weather.
right.
And they're like, start selling now. Like, that's cool in Georgia where it's 75 and sunny. Not so great in New York State. So
Yeah, so that they won't get started right away, but
yeah. All right.
So that was our gaming this week. You
All
had
right.
your crew in suspense, and
Yeah.
yeah, for our magical Q&A this week, talk about getting something into your game. I like to bring something from the real world of magic out there. Now, I'm going to spell something for you, Merwin. I want you to pronounce this for me, okay?
All right.
It's HECATE.
Give it to me one more time.
Right? HECATE.
Hecate.
Oh, very interesting. Are you familiar with Hecate at all?
It is a word that I've heard before,
Okay.
but I am drawing a blank. I'm guessing its origin is somehow Spanish or Latin,
Okay. All
or
right. I like
it could
that.
be Italian.
I'm going to take you Greek and Roman.
Oh,
We'll go Greek and Roman.
Hecate. That's a Greek. It's a goddess of something, right?
Yes.
It's in there. It's in my brain somewhere.
Yes.
Give it to me.
Okay. Well, there's, when you get into Greek and Roman myth, there's a lot of, things going on.
And you sound great right now, by the way.
Thank you. So Hecate is the goddess in Greek mythology capable of both good and evil.
Okay.
So that's one thing that's really cool when you talk about a deity, and we're going to be talking about, world building and everything. One that crosses over the lines, something to think about, especially now that the alignments have kind of been blurred. The other thing is that she's associated with witchcraft, magic,
Yeah.
the moon, doorways, creatures of the night like hellhounds and ghosts. And as you do more research about her, you find out that she is even associated to Egyptian mythology,
Okay.
going into Set and the dog-headed, bringer from the realm of the undead.
Mm-hmm.
And this is really where I want to kind of bring that been talking about, ripping stuff off and use it in your campaign world, make it part of your story. She's also been depicted as a three-headed goddess.
Okay.
And also as a dog. And when you think of the three-headed dog, you know who I'm talking about, right? Who's the three-headed dog?
My ex-fiance.
No, Cerebrus, right? The
Yes.
three-headed dog, right?
Yeah.
Three-headed dog. So now, the other thing that's really cool when you do research about her and her name is her pronunciation.
Okay.
Okay. And it's funny because we're talking about Cerebrus, right? And we know that J.K. Rawlings, stuck Cerebrus in there.
I was waiting for you to get to this. Yeah.
Wait. Let's spoilers.
Fluffy.
Fluffy, right? So she kind of sneaks that in there, sort of as like a hats off to Hecate in a way. But the other thing that makes it really interesting is that there are two pronunciations of the name.
Okay.
So there's Hecate and Hecate. Okay, and both are actually correct, but the mispronunciation, comes down to different syllables.
Mm-hmm.
There's even some discussion that the real pronunciation is hidden.
Okay.
For like real magical reasons, and that's why we have these two that we kind of toy with and
Right.
play
Well, that's
with.
that's a long-standing bit of magic lore. The idea that the true name of something, if you know it, it gives you power over it.
Right,
That's,
right,
which
right.
modern iterations connects. In modern iterations, it connects to the Fae. In older versions, when we were allowed to be edgy and have demons and devils, and nobody got their panties in a twist. Back in the day, that was a big thing with demon or devil contracts and whatnot. Is that if you could get the devil's true name that held your contract, you could force him to break the contract.
Right, right, exactly. So it's very interesting. And now what I find even more interesting, we go back to J.K. Rowling and the mispronunciation of a spell. The Leviosa.
It's not Leviosa. It's Leviosa.
No, it's Leviosa. Now, if that is not a Hecate play on magic and the debate, and it's even funny because even in one of these articles it says the argument is still left unsettled and we aren't settling it. Right? This is from like
that's every internet article for the last 10 years is they put up some giant flashy headline. We're gonna figure this out, and then they don't because they don't want to do that, which is going to be a segue into our later topic when we set the entire show on fire. I'm looking forward to that.
So
spoilers.
I just want to put her out there as something to investigate. We get into the pronunciation. I think is something else I wanted to bring out.
Yeah, no, I like that. So
the great point about the demons and the fiends.
Yeah, let me hit up a couple of game connections because a lot of the things that you have said, and we're going to talk about world building the first half of tonight. And there's a lot of points that I have and things that I've done that tie into exactly what you were saying. So first, there's a line, the movie Constantine.
Yeah.
There's the lot when Satan shows up and Gabriel starts calling him all the other names, right? Most unclean, and he goes, "Oh, the old names are the best ones." Like that shit stuck with me forever, right? And when we get into the world building, I'm gonna tell you, there's a lot of little influences that have shaped how I do it over the years. That's one of them. Because I remembered that line, and it stuck with me because just like Hecate, whatever, I realized that the gods in my homebrew are known differently in different cultures. Owen, who's who's in the chat, and again, thanks for the feedback, has got to experience the absolute lore whore that I am. So gods have different names based on different cultures. Some versions don't show up. The goddess of the moon doesn't show up for dwarves because they don't give a shit. There's different versions in different places. The evil gods, the same way. So then that whole name thing always stuck with me. So the goddess that they are traipsing around and dealing with right now is Sinane, the temptress, the breaker of oaths, or my favorite name, because she is the consort of the god of the damned. She is the whore of Ketmosh. That's my favorite title for her.
Yeah, I even like names, using names like having signatures, like when they have to do the devil contract or something, and you make your players sign their character's name.
Yep.
I have a lot of fun with that.
Actually, I have those. You know what I should do? I have a prop. I'll try to find it here when you're talking to drop. I made devil contracts because in my other campaign they made a deal with a hag. So they had contracts. I'll try to drop the graphic in the chat here in a few minutes.
Very
but
nice.
But no, so I had that a while back. I hit upon the idea for having the gods have different aspects. So I like the homebrew deities for the players based on kind of what they want their in-game experience to be. This is another good point for DMs and for players with the collaborative world building and making an interesting character. You can be a cleric, but if you can get if you're DM schooled homebrewing and you have a certain personality or style or even mechanical things you want to do, pitch a domain specifically for your character. Make a new god for it, and then your gameplay will be something unique. and that leads to, again, an
Oh
interesting
yeah,
character.
absolutely too.
So
And even the DM too, because then the DM sinks their hands into this new
yeah,
god they
and
get
new
to
things they
work
can do.
with.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
have a lot of
So
fun.
to conclude my point, like I said, those are a lot of those things that you mentioned with Hecate are all things that I have worked in because I realize that history is the best fantasy of all. Like there's shit. I've been listening to a podcast series about the history of Rome, and the things that happened in the historical record, you're just like, I would never have thought of that in a million years, and that's awesome. I'm definitely stealing that.
Yeah. So anybody out there that especially our live folks, you got a topic for you want a magical Q&A? I love doing my research. Hit us up, and I'll bring it back to our next show.
All right. Well, that's awesome. So now we're going to move on a little out of order today. We're going to move on to our shameless plug of the day. So, in case you haven't noticed from the logo or anything that we have said, this podcast is brought to you by Dungeon Studios, who is getting ready to launch their second Kickstarter. I believe it's coming up on Black Friday. So, you got money to spend, you got a nerd in your life. Please feel free to give us that cash. Also, you can find us on and support the podcast through all the usual sources, Patreon, or through the Kickstarter. We appreciate anything that you do.
And we have a new website too. It's
we do. It
all
is
one
Dungeon
word,
Yep.
dungeonstudios.co. I mean, you can't mess that up. It's simple and it's awesome. We got everything laid out there for you to check out. There's even some free stuff to go smash and grab. Go check out the Enron Chronicle. They got free stuff there, man. Check it out.
Yeah, I believe there's 2 free copies you can grab off the site. You also have the opportunity to pick up modules individually from the original Kickstarter through the website, but also, as we will get into more details later, during our break, we actually have the pretty sweet and sick looking ad for the second Kickstarter you guys can enjoy while we're grabbing refilling our drinks. But
that's that gnome that does all the production, right? He's pretty good at that stuff.
Yeah. It is pretty stellar. I'm not going to lie. I am impressed, and I had nothing to do with it, which makes it all the better for me. So, with that being said, though, I want to take a moment. We're going to talk about world building, and since the Kickstarter features 7 separate adventures, all within the world of Eneron, which is the setting for Dungeon Studios and the backbone of the products that we are putting out, I wanted to take a moment to go through information about the Kickstarter. In particular, right here, the modules, a little bit about them,
Sure.
and some of the world building stuff that we glean from that can lead us right into the main topic when we start talking about our home brews and a bunch of other stuff. So why don't you lead it off while I find my devil contract to put in here for no particular reason,
sure.
and for no one to sign. Start us off with the Briny Botel.
Yeah. Briny Botel is our low-level first to third level module where you're going to try to find a murderer, kind of set up like Psycho. Really kind of cool. There's suspects, very murder mystery, old creepy hotel at the seaside, some sea caves to explore. Really cool. I think it's very neat. Misty Tower is that gnome. Yeah, crazy gnome built some crazy tower in wild magic mists to top it off, right?
So let me ask you really quick.
Yeah.
Before we get too deep, I was curious. So you're the writer on that, if I remember correctly, correct?
Yeah. I wasn't going to say that. I was just going to.
No. You got just shameless plugs, and you got to plug yourself.
I don't like to
So
do that.
I know look, it's good. I know we've talked about it. So I want to ask you a question about that module.
Sure.
The party is seeking an object that was in the possession of a crazy gnome. So explain to me why a crazy gnome, why that character. Is there a deeper connection? Did it just sound cool to you? How did you decide that was going to be who had the object?
Oh, well, I guess because when I joined Dungeon Studios a year ago, I test played a wild magic gnome and named him Quizzle.
Okay.
And at the same time, I had a arcane trickster named Quizzle in another campaign. So it sort of just became my thing that all my gnomes were named Quizzle.
Okay.
And then they would have like a different middle name, and then they'd have a different last name. So Quizzle Zarhol Polytinker or Quizzle Zeberly Polygynx. It was just sort of a thing I started going with. And then when I had to come up with a concept, was going to be this tower in the mists, and was really chasing this warlock looking for this object, right? This artifact. I was like, well, who would have a tower in these crazy mists in the first place? I had played a wild magic gnome in Eneron already, which is our world setting. So bingo, that became, you know, the convergence of the Quizzles happened at this wild magic location in a vast. And then meanwhile, there's a sick cultist leader named Alistair Asborn who wants to retrieve one of the Hell's Bells of Eneron. And these bells, you know, we were just talking about demons and fiends. The bells work similarly to the name calling, but each bell can summon a different demon. Now, if you know its name, you might be able to control it when it gets there. You have about a minute.
On the clock, figure it out.
Yeah, you're on.
No, I like it. No, it's good. That's good stuff, man.
So, yeah, well, don't you have to get this warlock.
Don't give away too much. We don't give him away too much. We want him to buy the module.
Oh no! Okay.
I got you rolling on it. I apologize.
There's a lot more. There's a lot more.
Yeah, no, it's good. I like that kind of stuff, and I like the. I personally was always a home brewer, but I like the depth that goes into a lot of this kind of stuff. And one of my favorite things is the accessibility of, you know, small time creators and whatnot. With product, you can get stuff that fits your table, fits what you like at the level you want. And, you know, our stuff is certainly in the mix of that. Like I said, it's pretty good. So before we go on to the next couple of adventures, just again, a reminder, you know, hit like, hit subscribe, follow, you know, hit follow, whatever you're listening to us on. And don't be, don't be shy about sharing it with your friends. We have a bunch of people that we have, you know, shouted us out. We're shouting them out and whatnot. Doc's got a whole list. And we'll get to a couple of them in a minute. But let's move on to the next module in the set. Is
Dark Escape.
Thank you.
Right?
Yeah, which is...
go ahead.
Well, I'll get this one. So, Dark Escape takes your players prepared to do a thing and then suddenly turns the tables on them so that what they are doing is not what they expected to be doing, and now they got to figure out how to survive, adapt, and escape when they weren't expecting to be where they show up at. And I don't want to spoil too much, but I definitely think that is good to do to the players. The more powerful the characters get, the longer people play, the more accustomed to things they get, the more routine things become, and if I dare say it, perhaps the more lazy the players get. So it's good to shake that up every now and again.
Well, I think the other thing, we talk about world building. I think the other thing about Dark Escape that's important is for the world building of Eneron, it's introduction to our nether void or our underground, new underground creatures and things like that you've never encountered before. So that's kind of cool part too.
Yeah, that is a good thing too. So there's a lot of people that, I have one of our play testers, is one of the guys that, you know, he's seen all this stuff before. You know, he likes new challenges, new monsters. A lot of players get stuck in a loop where, you know, characters die, things don't go very well, and they find themselves rerunning the same levels and whatnot. You know, so it allow this kind of stuff where we build new monsters unique to the setting, really gives them a chance to feel that wonder again. You know, we all know what an orc is. We all know what a dragon is. But do we know what the, what do we have? Do you know what a logger is? How about a glacial one? You don't. But you'll find out.
And there's a cave,
in the modules.
A cave logger in that one.
Okay, very nice.
Yeah, and then the next one is another world builder for us. Right? Rise the Raven Lord.
Yep.
Introduces our Skurg and the dark shadowy realm of Eneron. So, it builds on that whole, and you could just imagine the Raven Lord being the leader of that darkness. Really exciting module. I've already gotten to play test that one once.
Nice.
So that's really, really exciting.
And
hey, by our adventure team lead Owen there too.
Very nice. Speaking of play testing, just so you guys know, if you're interested in being a play tester, you're looking for casual pickup games, we are always happy to have fresh victims. So, check us out. You get into our Discord, become a play tester yourself, and then, you can get in on the tail end of what we're doing right now, and also find yourselves in a position to play test the next set of new stuff that we come up with.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Wonderful.
We have lots of stuff to play test, too. With our Patreon, we have our side adventures to be tested. We're going to have some games to be tested. There's going to be a lot to be tested. So if you're out there and, you're into games, we're going to have a lot going on.
Wonderful. So after Rise of the Raven Lord, we get into Pillars of Light?
Yeah, Pillars of Light. And I don't want to talk too much about it because I'm in the midst of the play test.
Mm-hmm.
With it right now, but really, really cool. You meet an insectoid race, and you've got to kind of figure out what's happened to them and help them survive. It's really exciting. And then, can I say who the big bad guy is at the end, or do you keep that one as?
No, you know what? Well, first of all, when they watch the
cover,
when they watch the commercial, they're going to see who the big bad guy at the end is. So go ahead and spoil it away.
All right. So there's no. I mean, I don't want to say it's because it's again what we were talking about is sort of a twist to it. So I'll just let people see the cover.
Okay.
And they have to figure out the twist. I think that's a better way to leave it. But the one thing I wanted to talk about, we skipped over it earlier, but while we were doing the play test, we talked about something that I wanted to bring up, and I hope I can stop my effective PR for today and a little DM advice that we used for that play test. And I actually think you can use this in any game.
Hit me up. What do you got?
It's the relax, ready, and roll. Okay. If everybody at your table remembers those three things, you're going to be ready to play. Now, give me a second to explain it. All right.
Yeah. Hit me up.
All right. So when you sit down to play any role-playing game, you've got to be relaxed, and that means everything to like having your snacks in front of you. Turn that cell phone off, get, the distractions out of your way, make sure the dog's walked already, all that kind of stuff. Get relaxed, get comfortable where you are. That also helps you be a better role player in your character if you're relaxed as a player.
Well, yeah, I mean, how can you properly think about what your character would do if you are thinking about all the shit you got to do?
Right, And Frankie says, relax, don't do it. Dr.Pletorius says, relax, please do it when role-playing, okay? Frankie said it for a whole different set of reasons, all right? Then the next one is be ready. Now, this one, as a DM, and I don't know how to say this because we've all seen it, if you're relaxed and you get to your turn in initiative, you got to be ready. Please don't pull the last minute switch. You feel like you're going to do it, but there's a whole nother group of people at that table that it's kind of hurtful to make them wait. If you're ready to switch, that's one thing. But if you're making people wait to switch, you're not ready.
Yeah, changing your mind in the fly, or you get the analysis paralysis.
Right.
Or the worst is people who decided they're going to change what they do, and they have to like read the spell. Like, I got to read the spell first.
Correct.
Like, so what I got in the habit of doing, what I would suggest for people, if you want to be a grumpy grognard like me, you just say you got 10 seconds and you're done. You lose your turn, kind of thing. Put the pressure on them. Or you can be nice and say, okay, I'm going to skip you. We'll come back. You're going to go with the end of whenever you're ready, you're going to go at the end of whoever's going.
And again, I don't really like to do that unless it's actually a timer in the game. You know, like you had like, you know, the ceiling's going to collapse or something like that. Because that's, again, part of the relax. I'm going to go back to that. I don't like to throw people under the bus like that. If you're not ready, I'm moving on.
Yeah.
Because
I like the stress and suffering.
No, I kind of move on if people really aren't ready. You know, if you're really taking that long, I'll say, you know, I'm going to defer to you. I'll come back to you at the end of the initiative, because obviously your character is not ready if you're not ready. But anyway, and then the last was the roll. And this is the one players do too, is they'll say, all right, what do I need? Don't ask what you need. Roll that die, man, because you roll a 19 or a 20, the game's going to keep moving. It's exciting. You roll the 1 or a 2, same thing. The fail, it's exciting. It's going to keep the game moving. All right, you roll a 15, I'll double check what the DC was for that roll. And a lot of times when you're rolling on the fly, you're going to see that your game becomes far more spontaneous and everybody at the table is having a better time. So the 3 is relax, ready, and roll. And we use those during that play test for Pillars of Light. And it really, really helped us. Because we did have some large exploration sections where you go through like some different regions, savanna and forest. And just to get through those sections, it was nice to have players kind of just be on point with that stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So it's excellent.
Yeah, and you know, that's another thing that comes up is everyone at your table has a different level of rules knowledge, a different level of comfort, different level they want to play at. And as I'm running into with a newer player in my home game, everybody puts it together at their own speed. I have a real nasty habit of trying to keep things moving. And what I will do is they'll roll, like they're like, okay, it's 12, and like I want to just throw. I know what their bonus is because I've done it a million times.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, it's 19, good. You missed. Let's go. And I'm like, I gotta stop doing that because I don't want them to not learn the rules. I had that problem with my original group. Some people that are lifelong friends, love them to death, but for whatever combination of factors, 7 years in, 10 years in, 12 years in, it's like, hey, make your attack roll. All right, I rolled a 7. What do I add to that? Dude, if you don't know at this point in time, I don't know what to tell you. And it's one of those things where like I don't get it. That's I know it's a pretty popular format on for all the D&D channels to talk about the 10 player habits that suck, or the 5 worst kinds of players and whatnot. So I don't want to get into that here. I
think that's just an OG thing.
Oh yeah, it's been done forever.
There wasn't so many bonuses back in those first edition days. It was just roll, you know.
Yeah. Well, I will tell you. So one of the things you mentioned before, and you got through all 3 R's. Before we move on to the final 2 modules of the Kickstarter. I wanted to point out, you said you made a comment about initiative being not initiative. I have not had enough coffee today. Alignment going away. I have an entire just multi-hour rant about alignment that we'll have to get into as a show topic one of these days. Don't let me forget.
You and I have been talking about that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. It's one of my favorite things. Alignment's a good one. Player types and all that kind of stuff are fertile ground to mine for conversation, which for those of you guys that like, share, subscribe, and follow us, feel free to throw in the chats or on our Discord ideas, things you want to hear about. We did it last week. I was going to do world building last week, and we had put up a poll, and somebody wanted to hear about character building, and I'm like, you know what? Let's go ahead and do that, and we did. So we're happy to get the suggestions. We're more than happy to help out.
We're just 2 regular DMs, and we just want to share what we do with other DMs out there. That's the gig, and we enjoy creating stuff along the way.
Well, I would like to think that I'm exceptional, which leads me to the 2 modules that I wrote. Obviously, the best ones ever. There is Titan's Peak. So. I will tell you, I have to be honest to myself. I despise gnomes, and I never really got like the the magic technology mix stuff that's never appealed to me.
I see. I always liked that.
It was never a thing for me. I'm a very Tolkienian kind of guy. Never a thing for me. And then of course, my first assignment at Dungeon Studios is writing a module that is smack dab inside a giant mechanical kaiju. And you're set, and it's in the area next to the place where all the artificers and techno magic people are. I'm like, all I need now is for you to tell me there's a bunch of gnomes there. And they go, well, of course, that's the primary race that lives in the area. Of course it was. So I have a gnome involved giant magic technology dungeon crawl that we are.
Can you do your gnome voice for us? That was great.
Oh, did you like the gnome voice?
Yeah, I did like your gnome voice. Do your gnome voice.
Well, hey, you know what? So here's what I'm going to do, guys.
Plug with your gnome voice.
Give me a second. I'm probably going to blow up the internet while I do this. I'm going to actually, since I got the green light from the producer that we can throw some spoilers out there. You want the gnome voice? I'm going to bring up this. One of the things that I'd like to work into the modules is I like to provide the dialogue whenever possible and as much as possible for the DM. So that they can get a feel for how the character sounds and what they're going to say. A lot of, hey,
let's hear it. Come on.
No, I'm sorry. I got distracted. One of my buddies hopped in the stream, and he's making jokes, and I started laughing. Come on, I got him. Go. Don't you rush me. Let's go easy. So, anyways, I'm getting to it right now. I'm gonna cut this right here. I'm gonna read you a bit of the dialogue, and this is the kind of stuff that you can expect to find throughout the modules. When you get the Kickstarter, when you pick these up. But I always love doing it, and I try. Like I said, I work very hard to put things again in the voice of the characters. I want them to sound good. So we are seconds away from the ridiculous gnome voice, but of course my computer is loading. My computer is loading as slow as humanly possible because I have all the things going on right now.
While he's loading that, it is a really exciting adventure. It started in the cold, and we had to be like all bundled up. And then I really feel like it has that Barrier Peaks feel where everything's unknown again. It's really cool. I've been enjoying the test play, running through it with my dwarf, axing things up.
Yeah, and I do like the I like that, and you got with that, it's I'm glad that it is worked out as well as it has. Having
our group that we
is
have
figuring this stuff out and is digging in there and seeing stuff. So that's great. Apparently we're glitching again, so I got to stop trying to open things on the internet. It's not a fan of it. But
just give us some notes.
I'm getting there. Give me a second. I want to read the script. I wrote it's like I'm going to read it because I wrote it. That's let's see. Well, I'm going to read. Let me find a spot here. Okay. Forgers and founders be quenched. You have it. I hadn't noticed till now, but if my hypothesis is accurate, that blade you pried from the Titan's arm is the key to stopping this accursed thing in its tracks. Now hear me out. With all their knowledge, the makers of this thing couldn't find a way to replace or destroy that blade. They had to use it, harness its powers. I bet that they couldn't destroy it, and that it can be used against this core, and then we can destroy it. Now, give it to me. Give me the blade. Let me finish what must be done. Let my death save us all.
Gosh, I just feel like somebody's taking a record and cranking you a little bit faster forward. It sounds so great. I love it. It's like the Chipmunks. Oh, it's great. Oh.
Wonderful. All right, let me close this down because I'm obviously destroying our whole thing. So close that down. All right, we're good to go. All right, so but yeah, that is a Titan Peaks
15 to 17, right? The levels for that? Is that...
Actually, I think it's 15 to 17. You are correct. 17? Okay. Yeah. You could tweak that around. You go a little lower, a little higher, depending on what you need, where you're at, and what you're doing. And obviously, the amount of people you have in your party is going to affect that. But that is a good dungeon crawl with a lot of little bits in there, a lot of different things to do, and getting better with every playtest. And then finally, we have the General's Lost Galley, which.
Yeah.
All I'm going to say, I think I would love to just say, you're going to need a bigger boat. I can just leave it at that, and I think everyone can kind of figure out what's going on. Of course, I always chuckle, and I got to laugh out of you for this. I always love working little jokes in there because I know it's going to get edited out. People are going to read it, so that's why, as we were preparing the epic ending encounter for the General's Lost Galley, I had the boss monster on the battle map just for testing purposes as little Enzio. I can assure you he's not little. That is 100% not the case. But yeah, this is built on a few different concepts. One of the things that we do with the content and the products that we're putting through for Dungeon Studios is really trying to hone in on certain styles of play to make these accessible. Now, even though it is set in our world, a lot of the modules are going to have notes on little tweaks that you can make. The General's Galley is one of these. It's an end game kind of module, but it's built on the 5-room dungeon concept or the 5-scene concept. So you can very easily work this into a single night's gaming.
Yeah.
And then you as the DM can kind of weave how you get there. And really, there's only really a few things that you would have to tweak, very minimal changes to the module to seamlessly put it in your home game or whatever setting that you're running, and then you're good to go. Or, you could run a full Eneron campaign, and this is a good kind of ending encounter. And the beauty of it is because it itself is contained, right? You can go ahead and get to the start of the adventure.
Sorry.
No, you're good. In 100 different ways. And it's even written to be flexible. So if you plan to play afterwards and you don't like what we've included for epic level treasures, you can go ahead and swap in your own stuff. It's your world. It's your game. We're just helping you have a better time playing in it. That's all we can hope for. So, but yeah, nice, short, sweet, to the point. A bit of a mystery. We build some suspense, and then things happen.
I want you to stay alive, and then they ain't up. And if you want to play it cheap,
that's what I'm telling you right now. If you're looking for something, we haven't play tested the final fight, but looking at it, I think it might be underpowered, which according to my playtest group means it's overpowered. And what better way to end your epic level 20 campaign than getting TPK'd by a demigod? Why would you not want to do that?
Or you win and you yourself, you ascend to that. I don't know. That's like level 4 of play, right? When your character becomes the deity himself, right?
Yeah. Well, that's that is a classic endpoint for a lot of games.
Yeah.
All right. Well, hey, so we've gone on a lot about this stuff. So here's what I want to get into with the world building stuff, and with all of these things, it's made me think a lot about what I do, and what I want to have a chat about is kind of your process and some of your influences. And then a big question that comes up is, modules or homebrew? Do you, or do you mix them? Do you play somebody else's setting? Do you work modules into your own? And I get a lot of different things, and I know you run a homebrew, but it's based off of Strahd.
Right.
I ran a lot of Forgotten Realms and Dragonlance back in the 90s when I was coming up. Excuse me. When I was coming up, I ran a lot of that stuff. But I never used the modules because my players kind of mocked the book adventure.
They didn't like it. They didn't like the delivery or the writing.
A little bit. So here's the thing. So one of the things that we got in that I always wanted to do, and that I tried to kind of get everybody I brought into the game to do, was the idea that the game is open ended. You can do anything you want to do. You build the story. The DM controls events and things that happen, but at the end of the day, you guys have crafted the story together, right? So the book adventures, as we call them, back in the day, a lot of them. There's a couple things I didn't realize. Let me phrase it like this.
Wait, can I just wait? When you
hit me up.
When you say book adventures, you're saying because they were like the Dragonlance books?
No, because you would.
Or do you mean book adventures because they're just typed?
For all you youngins out there, I'm gonna speak old person for a minute. So you would go down to the game store or to the mall where the game store had an outlet. And then you would go to the book rack in a physical store, and there would be dozens of sealed, beautiful, ready-to-go modules.
On a cranky metal rack.
Little books. They were little books. And you would buy the little book, and you'd go home, and you'd tear into it and pore over it, and you would love it. It would have maps and artwork. And it would have,
or you had to know the secret code word because they didn't actually have it out where I grew up. But anyway, go ahead.
Oh, really?
Yeah, dude. You had to ask. You had to give the secret code word. And ask if you could see the Dungeons and Dragons stuff, and then they put you in a closet, like you were in like the porno room.
Really?
Yeah. They didn't want anybody else to see it, and then when you went and bought it, they like wrapped it up real quick. It was nuts.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah, no, seriously, dude.
It wasn't that bad in my generation, but it was definitely way easier to go to the game store when it was, separate.
But that's what you're talking about. You're talking about the actual model.
Yeah, it was a physical book. So we call them book adventures. And one of the things that we didn't like or that was a concern was, there's some conceits in those things in every module that we didn't really understand as players and as people running the games. That it assumes you're going to take the adventure hook. It assumes that you're going to complete what's in the module, right, that you're going to be motivated to do it. So some of my players were contrarians who were like, I'm not going to do it just because you want me to do it. There are those types. And then you had the ones that if the hook wasn't interesting to them for whatever reason, they weren't going to do it. We didn't understand the kind of social contract in the game that the DM is going to put together and put forth content, and
you got to buy one of the hooks.
You got to do something, right?
Or you're not playing.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that we were not great with back in the day, and then it led to a lot of games kind of falling apart because I'd put a couple things out there and it wouldn't be what they wanted it to do, and then you get some frustration going on and all that kind of stuff could happen. So and then of course I didn't do any real game prep when I was coming up early, right? So everything was off the top of my head. My descriptions were amazing. Things were rocky and barren and pokey and gray, and nothing had a smell, nothing had a smell, nothing had a taste, nothing had a feel. That's what you got. One of my friends, when he would run games, like he'd get caught up on a word. So there was one session, I think he said the word dilapidated about 360 times because everything was dilapidated. So, and they're great. They're great memories. That's the thing. They're great memories. But yeah, we never cared for them. So I was always a home brewer, right? So, what I wanted to get into with the topic was the idea of where you get your inspiration from, kind of what your process is. And then, why go off a book? So for me, my process has always been the same kind of core thing. I will do nothing until the last minute and then pray to God that I'm hit by a bolt of lightning and I get an inspiration. It's not really that bad. What it usually is so I have a couple ways that I build stuff. So I build it by, I'll see something and it will, I'll get the thought, it'll inspire me. I'm like, oh, that's cool. How can I work it into the game? Like your Hecate thing. I come across that in a class and I'm like,
how can I add this in?
How can I add this? Right. Or I'll get a scene in my head and that's what I want to kind of build around. And that's how I would always do it. So I'd wait for that to come up and then I would develop it in the background of my brain pre-game, and then I would never write anything down. And I would just wing everything, which was cool when I was younger and my brain worked fine. Doesn't do that anymore, and I've been putting more and more work in. So that's
funny. It's funny because because I think when I was younger, the thing I enjoyed most was we would make like a contained world. Like let's say the map was just like this rectangle, and then we'd say, oh, we put like a cornerstone so that you could like travel off the west side and you would come up on the east side, like a video game, right?
Yeah.
The world map. And then to us it was always like you were trying to get outside of that world.
Right.
You know, and we always had like a world, inside a bottle, so it sort of became like a Russian doll thing. That's the way ours always turned out, something like that. You'd get outside of it, and then there'd be more in another world and another world.
Yeah. So for me, my thing, and my players give me shit about this to this day, and we're literally 32 years later, and I'm still hearing the same bullshit from them. When I was younger, I would dive in, and everything went 1,000 miles an hour to be some world-ending catastrophic, you need to be the hero to solve it kind of thing, right? There was never downtime. There was never anything minor that happened. Everything was always some gigantic thing, right? That's how it was. But I will tell you, so some things that inspired me, and as I got older, the more I played, and I would tell you guys, DMs, right now, keep at it. The more you do it, the better you get. And, you know, don't get discouraged. Don't give up. That's the big thing. But
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I hit a couple of milestones over the years that really shaped how I built the world. I want to share a couple of them with you, and then you can tell me about your journey from youth to now and how you world build. And you know, so I never used modules. Did everything from homebrew. And when I started out, I was very much young, brash, egotistical. Everything I do is perfect. My first draft is awesome. I don't need any corrections. And obviously, I'm right. And I wouldn't, I would just go with that, right? And I kept, my world was my thing because nobody was going to do it the way I wanted it. It wasn't going to be, you know, your idea is not as good as mine, or I'm better, or, well, it's my world and I can't let you change things because it's not your world. So I was like that for, I don't know, 43 years of my 45 years of being alive. Well, maybe not that bad, but I was like that for a long time. So my world building stagnated because I'm heavy on the creative spectrum, like we've talked about, you know. So I was always coming up with stuff, but it was just me, right. Just my input, just my perspectives, and it was good. It wasn't terrible. Obviously, people play the games, but it wasn't what it could be because I was excluding so much stuff, right? So one of the milestones that I hit that really changed things was I listened to a podcast. So listen to ours, like, share, and subscribe, and you'll get there too. But I listened to a podcast, and I listened to it, a theory, and there's actually the guys who has the theory. He has a documentary that just came out, I believe, on Netflix. I can't wait to watch it. But I listened to a podcast, and the guy was talking about Göbekli Tepe, which is a Neolithic site that
I know you're talking about,
that has these crazy stone structures and carvings and things that we didn't think humans could do until 4,000 or 5,000 years ago. But the site is like 15,000 years, I think it's 12,000 years old. And I listened, and he was on a podcast with a guy called, his name is Randall Carlson. I think that's right. I might have got that wrong. But he's on there with a geologist, and they're talking about the Sphinx and how people say the pyramids and the Sphinx are 5,000 years old. But if you look at the weather erosion around the Sphinx, it's actually closer to 15,000 years, they think, between 10 and 15, right?
Right. This is a big controversy.
Big controversy. And then they got into this thing called the Younger Dryas Impact Theory. Short version of it is civilization builds up to heights that we can't understand, and then gets whacked by a comet, a meteor, wiped out by disease. Something stupid happens, and we get thwacked, right? And it basically puts us back to the Stone Age. All the technology gone. So anything that is not really permanent, like giant stone structures, is gone. Just, wiped out. Right, and then and then all the advanced shit people learned goes away. Because You're back at a point where now all you're doing is struggling to not get eaten by dinosaurs,
Right.
and
By creatures.
find something to eat, find somewhere to live, right? You don't have time for computer science when you got to kill a goddamn woolly mammoth with a spear. You ain't got time for that shit. And I listen to this podcast and I go, son of a bitch, because in my world building, everything was always a very compact timeline, start to finish. The gods made it. People are here. And there was no depth to it. It was very shallow, right? There, like dungeons didn't have a reason to have them. You're just supposed to have dungeons. Ruins are just there. Ruins are there because they're there. And maybe it was like, it was a war a couple hundred years ago. There was no depth to what I was doing. And I listened to that podcast and I'm like, well, son of a, I go, it was so interesting. And I'm like, well, shit. I'm like, I need to do that because that makes so much sense. And it gives a context and a feel to things. And I like lore, and it allows me to build up that very easily. And then players find stuff and they're like, like one of the things I started doing, a very simple thing, very simple trick you can use. When you find loot, it's like, oh, it's gold pieces. I never described a gold piece except for the very first part of my very first game in a campaign. I'd be like, hey, just so you guys know, the copper pieces are called thumbs, silvers are called eagles, and the golds are called crowns. Like, that's it. That's all you got. And then I had this revelation. I started deepening my world building. You know what I did? I said, okay, you find a chest full of coins. And then I would make it a point to say,
40 crowns.
But you look at these. You look at these, and you see, coins and shapes and of compositions and languages, things you don't recognize, there's coins in here that date back to the first dynasty of the Regalum, 500 years ago. You're like, wow, those have been here for, and now immediately, like, oh, these have been here for 500 years. Yeah, but there's coins you don't recognize in languages nobody speaks. With people, things you don't recognize, and it immediately creates a depth. Now they're still worth their money. They're worth money. That's what they are in the game. But that little thing, a couple of lines of description, gives a depth to it. Second thing. Oh, so go ahead. No,
you go ahead. Your second thing. Go ahead.
Yeah, the second thing I got to with world building was paying attention to the names of things and making sure they sound the same. Simple trick I use for this. If I have a culture in my game that's going to be an analog, has an analog to something in the real world, I will try to use the language of that real world culture as the base, and then you fantasify it. You move some letters around, you add a K to everything, whatever you do. Some trick to take the actual language and turn it into the people, places, and things in that part of the world. So so in my campaign, when you are in the Vungrin forest, dealing with, and in the city of Tavelstad, you're part of the Oskolovish Empire, and the War Masters, the Meaz Razbul, all of those names I just threw out there, and you're dealing with the council, whose members are Boundersheen or the Doe, Limia Gruneheim. They all sound the same-ish. They all sound like they're from the same area. So if you go to cities in the Vungrin, people are going to sound that way, and it ties it together. And then you can start recognizing it.
That does give it a lot of depth.
Right. And then you can recognize it. Like, so if somebody shows up, in the city and their name is Lucas Aurelius, you're like, they're not from around here.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
And it was such a simple thing to do, and I never paid attention to it before. So, I make my names like that way. It's a good tip. And it builds depth, but it makes it more immersive. And then the third thing, which I had hit upon earlier, you had said, that line from Constantine, having that things have different names in different places. What a simple thing to do. Add a couple of titles. This is what this culture calls it. And then again, you immediately, you pull people in and you start to realize what, they do. Their religion is different. The name for things is different. They focus on it. A good example is with Khan languages, right? So the Dothraki from Game of Thrones. I watched the whole thing on the guy building the language, and he goes, one of the ways that we really solidify that this culture is its culture is that the Dothraki language has like 11 words for horse, but no word for boat because they don't go on the water, right? So those are three things that I picked up that really changed my world building, those little tweaks.
No, those are great. Those are great pointers.
So let me put it over to you, man. So what, what's your world building journey? How'd you start? And like I said, you're building off a module, which is a different thing than I do. So tell me about your process. Tell me about Raven Brew, why you do it that way.
I guess I've always been a mix master. I've always pulled stuff, published stuff and thrown it into my world or into our world. Mm-hmm. But I think I've always also kept the world always open-ended. Like you never get to the end. I like that whole is the world still flat kind of concept. We were talking about that earlier, like inside the Russian doll kind of thing. Mm-hmm. I've always liked that, like in Discworld, they're on the back of the turtle.
So one of my favorites.
Yeah, I mean, I always like that in a fantasy setting. So that used to be my go-to. This Raven Brew really came out of the fact that there's so much material, so much source material for the same stuff, if that makes sense. That I can look at something three different ways. Like I can look at Curse of Strahd or even Castle Ravenloft in three completely different lights, from like the first writing of it.
Are you saying different editions?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, you're 100% right. And that's a lot to do with the game philosophy that has defined each of the editions of the game. But I never thought about that. That's a great thing.
And that's something that I really took to Raven Brew, was that my Raven Brew was going to be like nobody else's. I was going to look at my Strahd and look at the old Strahd and this Strahd and that Strahd and how do my players fit into it. And that becomes the other thing, is that I don't like to build too much because I like my players to sort of pick up the lead and sort of build the campaign. Now, you don't have to build too much world building with Ravenloft because they're going from domain to domain to domain to domain, which is just my Russian doll thing again, right? I mean, I just love that. So in that case, with the Raven Brew, even if they go and look at stuff or read stuff or remember stuff, because one of the guys playing was the Ravenloft DM back in the day, right? I've got to hit him with, a curveball. And, Van Richten's guide's there for everybody. Mm-hmm. I can't go straight off Van Richten's guide either, And then there's always these bits, and this is something that's bothered me since I've been back in the game and looking at some of the new writing, the style. There's these parts in there for the DM that are like very, very descriptive and furly and adjective, and it's not something you get to share with the players. Like, I get you're supposed to put it in your head and feed it back out to them, but I feel like sometimes there's a lot tossed between when it should be actually read to the players and when it shouldn't. And when you're talking about world building and buying modules and those things, in the old days, they weren't always set up that way, They were set up much more sandbox with just what was in the room, and you had to figure out everything that was going on. Then it got to, the dialogue boxes, and then things didn't make sense. They were saying what was going on, right?
Right.
But then it didn't make sense. So that's where I went to, well, I'm just going to take what you have and put what makes sense to me, with my, science background and that kind of thing. And we were talking about that in the last episode with our modules coming out, putting in monster motivations and things like that.
Yep.
To me, that's really important part of world building, and what you were talking about with the depth, right? Like the different groups and different fractions in a region always help a game, and you were talking about that. Yep. And it was funny, you were talking about the names, and then you were talking about how the names help those different regions and stuff.
Yeah.
To me, I also found that names can really, really springboard a whole campaign. Um, I do a lot of random campaign generation. So as we're playing, we roll. And I was running this campaign in Philadelphia, and we ran into these orcs.
Mm-hmm.
And I came up with this idea. Oh, we're going to call them the Black Fang orcs. And then, like the next time we sat down to play, the orcs came up again. So I'm like, okay, this is the Purple Toe. Um, and before we knew it, we had built this huge thing where there were all these different tribes of orcs running around the land that were became part of the campaign, became part of the world building, if that makes sense.
No, 100%.
And that goes to what you said about it's everybody's story. I always turn back to my players and see, you know, what do they want to pull back in? What do they want to have involved? Even in the college days, it was like, okay, what do we want to have in the campaign? We're going to get together. What are we going to do? Now, we didn't have a world, but it was like, all right, let's do some of that Melibonian stuff from the old deities and demigods that they ripped off. Let's use some of that in this campaign. All right, we're gonna base it on that, and then we just sort of go from there. So I like keeping things open ended. I'm going to say it, J.J. Abrams, I hate you, you mystery box guy. But I love the mystery box. So that's really my big thing.
I got to tell you, I got some stuff. I got knowing what comes up in the second half of the show, I got a couple of things that reference Mr. Abrams mystery box. I was already going to drop a little thing about that. I love it. So it's all good stuff. So yeah, I mean, there are a lot. Like I said, there's no right or wrong way to do it. Just build. The last thing that I'll close out on as we move into our break, with a couple of final thoughts, and then I'm going to tell you the story of the worst dragon fight in the history of Dungeons and Dragons for me, anyways. I actually have two terrible epic battles stories that I'll share, but today will be the dragon one. One of the other big things that I did was I opened it up and I started to world build with other people. I didn't do that until I started teaching some people how to run the game. And you know, you're at that point, you're confronted with the fact that people have good ideas. Now, maybe it's not your cup of tea. They come up with something that's awesome, but it's not what you like. It still is awesome, right? And so when I started teaching people to run games, and I saw how much their world building inspired me to build my world more, and how things could connect, and you know, kind of like
that's what I'm saying. Yeah, that's what happens to me too. It's the other people around me that help me build.
Kind of like it's kind of like the crazy Charlie Day like conspiracy. No, think, you know, looking at all this like, oh, you said this about this section, and this is a thing that you were going to do. This is awesome. I'm going to steal this. Good to go. Great. You know, that kind of thing. Having that is huge, right? And that was another big turning point was I started to let other people build things that made it into the final cut of the world. Now, and maybe I tweaked it. You know, some things were great, some things I'm like good core idea, but I was open to that, and that led me to the tip I gave last week, and I preached to everybody: never give up free content, and have your players build a world for you. You know, my players want to play. Like I said, play cleric. What kind of cleric do you want? That makes me build a god, or maybe they build themselves. Give me a setting. Give me a thing. Where are you from? What kind of things do you want to know? In our playtest last night, Jamie was a little bit of lawyering there, and I appreciate that. Going on about, he goes, well, if I had access to Arcanotech in the game world, I think my character would have been all over that. Here's some reasons why. And I'm like, okay, he loves that shit. He'd be all over that. And what would be great about it is I could start the campaign at level 1. He tells me where he's from, and all of that shit can get built out of there just by him telling me what he enjoys and how cool it would be if these things were there for his character.
Was that the same guy who was saying he had the favorite enemy and he wanted to change his favorite enemy to the things we were fighting now? Was that? Because I mean,
no.
that's sort of the same thing. There was a player who was like, "Oh, well, my favorite enemy is a giant. My favorite enemy is a giant. Can I make my favorite enemy these robot things we're fighting?" Again, that's a campaign thing. That's a world building thing that you work with your players. We keep talking about that.
Well, yeah. Well, I love that, and I like as metagamey or cheaty as that might feel, I love that the players want to make choices based on what's going on in the game. That shit is the most amazing thing. So, all right, well, hey everybody, we're an hour and 10 into this. I think it's going good so far. I appreciate you guys being here. But I think we're going to get ready to move into our break here. So I'm going to tell you guys a quick story. But before I do, Doc, anything you want to throw in there to close out world building?
No, I'm good. I think I'm good. I got my shout outs, but we're going to save them for later.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Why don't you, how about you give me one right now? We were talking about another content creator, putting stuff out there for us, people that we've talked to. Give me one and I'll tell the story. Who do you want? Who do you got?
Well, I got to thank some Facebook groups that definitely share our podcast.
Okay.
My D&D and D&D for Life. I got to give both a shout out. Always share it out. They always share it out for us. Give us thumbs up. So they've been with me from the beginning, even when I do like crappy memes with bad spelling. They still put them up for me, pat me on the back, say nice job. So
no, it's great. And let me tell you something, guys. There's nothing better than building up your community. You can join us here at Dungeon Studios. But any nerds you have access to, it only enriches your experience. So,
let's hear this dragon story. Come on. Hit it.
So I have a couple of long-standing campaigns that I ran. Only 2 of them really ever got to completion. And as it was in the olden days, characters didn't live very long, right?
Right.
So we had our game came to an end. I believe it was 10th. I think it was 9th or 10th level, which is high level for us because apparently I kill players a lot, I guess. I don't know where that comes from. You saw the playtest. I barely even challenged you guys.
Oh no, we were wetting our pants there. You think you weren't challenging us?
Well, it could have been better.
Go ahead, keep going.
But no, so we wrap up the campaign with a very underwhelming boss fight because my players cheat. I'll tell that story next time. But we're like, all right, well, what are we going to do now? We finished the main storyline, and I'm like, well, we can keep playing, I guess. I mean, I never have characters get to 10th level in 2nd edition D&D. It was rare. And I'm like, oh, yeah, we'll throw some stuff together. So we did a couple of terrible little episodic games, and, they were okay, but they weren't great. And what we came to, and this is exactly what I heard in your playtest for Pillars of Light, was, man, I've never fought a dragon before. I'm like, yeah, you're right. We never fought a dragon, and we never get high enough level. Now, in 5e for you youngins, the monsters are designed, and you can fight a dragon when you're low level, and then there are dragons that are kind of scaled for you at whatever point you're at. So the dragon fight is never really a thing that's out of reach. With 2nd edition D&D,
the CR can be set properly.
Yeah,
right?
In 2nd edition D&D, back when they hated you and everything was trying to kill you and could. Dragons were a pretty serious business, and I was playing my home game. We had 2 people. A lot of people would come and go, and we had games that had 4 or 5 people, but it was just the same core 2. One of which is my buddy Jamie, who's in the playtest. Well, I'm like, all right, well, you guys want? Yeah, it's like, yeah, okay, we got to fight a dragon. Like, we want to do this. Yeah, okay. I'm like, all right, well, let me figure out some way to make that happen. Maybe it'll happen, right? So I finally come up with a storyline, and we get playing through it, and we get to the dragon fight, and they know it's coming, and I have this, they got to the first part great, and I have this whole gigantic, dungeon planned out in my mind, and minions and defenses, and they're gonna battle their way down, and at the base of this volcano, they're gonna fight this elder red dragon. It's gonna be the most epic thing ever. We're totally gonna make up for them completely ruining my actual big bad endgame villain from the main campaign. They get to the outside of the cave. The other player looks at me. He goes, "Hey," it's a volcano, right? Oh yeah. There's lava coming out? Yeah. So there's like cracks and fissures and things, right? Yeah, there is. He goes, well, I'm going to cast a spell. And I will tell you what that spell was after our break. Thank you for hanging out with us. Please, I hope you stick around with the break. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. Put it on social media. Post it in your Facebook groups. Whatever you got to do, get people to come to us. We're always looking for new friends, new people to listen. And in particular, always looking for playtesters. So
check out this super commercial, man.
Yeah, it's good. So I'm going to throw us on mute. I'm going to bring up the game music, and I'm going to transition over to our commercial. Enjoy it. We'll be back in just a few minutes. All right, that wasn't the worst transition that I've done. Welcome back, everyone. Doc, you with me?
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you.
Wonderful. All right, if you stuck around through the break, thank you very much. I cannot say enough of how I am impressed every time our production people at Dungeon Studios put together a commercial, a trailer, effects, graphics. All of the stuff you see playing on the screen is their hard work. They're way better at this than I will ever be. And I almost feel bad that someday we're going to have our ugly mugs up on here mucking up the whole show.
I thought it was just gnomes.
I hate everything. That's my shtick. Which I realized like maybe 20 minutes in, after all of our technical problems, which is just the way things go. I did not introduce myself or you, so thanks for coming back to us. We're your hosts, Grom, Grumpy Old Man Merwin, and the inscrutable, the ever awesome, and the very sleepy Dr.Pletorius.
Thank you. Yes, I am getting sleepy tonight. It's been a little bit late with all those supernatural technical difficulties.
It's every time. It's something new or different every single time. I will say I didn't get to give my gaming tip at the beginning either because I'm trying to manage a bunch of stuff and my brain is jelly. I have a firm belief. I've had it for most of my gaming career, and I will continue with it until the end of it. No game that starts on time ever goes well. So there always needs to be somebody late, otherwise you're bringing the bad juju down. End of story. That's a hill I'm going to die on. You're not going to change my mind. Excuse me. And with that, let me pick up my story.
Yeah, let's hear it. Let's hear it.
So they asked the questions, and said, I'm going to cast a spell. I said, what spell are you going to cast? Well, it's Wizard Eye. And I'm like, let me see that. What does it do? Well, it allows me to send a little eyeball and go explore up to like a mile away. It can fit through like a 1-inch crack. So I'm going to work my way through these lava cracks until I find my way to the lowest point of the volcano. I'm like, okay. And then I quickly realized that obviously the boss fight is in a magma chamber in the base of the volcano, so they can easily follow the lava waterfall to get to the bottom. So they do all that, and I'm like, all right, not a big deal. I'm good. They'll see the dragon. I want it to be awesome anyways. It would have been cooler to see it when they walk in for the first time, but fine, you're going to take a sneak peek. I don't care. I got a whole dungeon for you guys to go through to get there. It's going to be great.
Right.
And he goes, yeah, I see the dragon? I go, yes, you do. He goes, great, wonderful. He goes, I'm going to cast a spell on it. I'm like, what are you talking about? It's at the bottom of the volcano. He goes, read Wizard Eye again. I read it. The player can use this to cast spells through. I'm like, son of a bitch. I'm like, okay. I mean, it's like an Elder Red Dragon in 2nd edition Dungeons and Dragons. It's got immunity to magic. Like it just has, you just make a roll and it might just ignore your spell entirely. It's got a massive bonus to all of its saving throws are great. I'm like, all right. I'm like, you're gonna like piss it off and wake it up maybe, but like this isn't that big of a deal. I mean, what are you gonna hit for some damage? You're not gonna kill it with one spell. What spell do you cast? And I'm all ready to just watch him, my player cry in horror as his efforts go in vain. He goes, well, I'm going to cast Prismatic Sphere. Oh, Okay, what's that do again? Like, does a bunch of damage or it stuns him? He goes, no. No, it makes this big dome, and there's all these effects he's got to save against. Okay, and I look at the spell, and, first layer of the dome, it does, whatever D6 acid damage. Second layer is like a barrier of force, and if it hits you, it does something crazy. And I'm like, all right, I'm not even worried about this. And then I start going layer by layer. I'm like, this, he's magic resistant. This layer doesn't affect him. Second saving throw, I roll a great number. He's fine. Third one, he took a little bit of damage. Who cares? Fourth one, I roll like a 3. And I'm like, he fails. Let's say he fails his magic immunity roll. Well, I make a saving throw. I rolled another 3. So he's not immune, and he gets hit with a spell. What layer is it? It's layer 4. What does that do? It says it's the banishment layer. I'm like, okay. And I read it, and it says a character hitting this layer and failing their saving throw is banished to some other, outworldly plane for 1 year. Just gone. And I'm like, well, shit. So at the start of the session, before even going an inch into the dungeon, they have, with one spell and a couple of bad rolls, defeated the dragon. And I'm like, I can't. I'm at a loss for words. And I'm like, I like, magic is awesome, and I like clever players, and I would never think of cheating them of their victory with some nonsense. Although I did reread the rules for about 10 minutes just to make sure I did everything right. And I checked, and I'm like, come on, this dragon can cast spells. Can it plane shift or something? Nope, it's trapped forever. Awesome. So they ruined my goddamn game. And that was...
Were you ever able to DM a dragon again, or did you have to
no, here's the thing. So I did not run a legitimate dragon fight until last year. I mentioned that we did a charity event at the now defunct local game store where I live.
Yeah,
it was done. It was D&D for DMD, Duchenne's muscular dystrophy. There was a kid a couple towns over that was a gamer. Excuse me, that had passed away from the disease, unfortunately, and the local store decided to do a fundraiser for, through his sister.
And that's when you came back to do a dragon.
Yeah, I had built. And this is still in the works. Maybe we'll get it put out someday for use. But built a mega dungeon, a mega funhouse style dungeon in the old D&D tournament tradition. And we had a bunch, and we had a bunch of rules and everything around it to generate money. It was a great time, and the boss fight was going to be against an ancient red dragon. Right, that was the end. That was the end of the mega dungeon, and the players got nowhere near because, and the reason why though was for the best reason. The people in the game, the spectators, even the one kid's mom, were throwing down money to pump up encounters, add extra monsters to help or hurt the players, and we raised like $1,000 for the charity. So it was a great result. It was a good reason to not get anywhere. So at the end of the night, we're sitting there. It's been we started at noon. It is almost midnight, and I'm like, you know what? I made a dragon fight. Damn it! I got terrain for it. Who's got money? Let's do it. And we just ran the fight, and it was awesome. If anyone ever wants to check it out, you can go to, I believe it's up on my YouTube and my Twitch, Old Man Merwin, and you can find the stream and watch the boss fight.
It's interesting. My first test play was about a year ago at Dungeon Studios, and it was actually the Guardian Iceberg module from our first series of modules. And they're available at dungeonstudios.co, so you can go get a cool dragon battle there if we're talking about it and you're fired up. Go check it out.
Awesome. And just so you guys know, we're going to do some shameless plugs and talk about the Kickstarter for a minute here before we move on to our second topic to close the evening out. So with the Kickstarter, one of the cool things about this is that there's a lot of ways you can get involved. And having tiers. Your basic level tier going to give you a couple of the adventures out of this Volume 2 module. So if you're looking for high level stuff and you don't have anything on hand, you can grab General's Lost Galley and you can grab Titan's Peak. If you're looking for some starter stuff, You can go ahead and pick up the Botel, and you can pick up, excuse me, pick up Misty Towers. Or mix and match whatever you want if you're into that kind of stuff. So if you're looking for something with a murder mystery and you're looking for something that has technology in it, make your choices. Then you can go from there. That's a $10 level. You get up to 15, you get 3 adventures. 30, you get all the adventures. But wait, there's more. I feel like I'm doing an infomercial. I love it.
Well, that's the early bird, right?
Oh, that's right. It's the early bird. Sorry.
That's
good call.
Early bird.
So 40. So if you're not in early, it'll cost you 40 to get everything, but still
$10 cheaper if you buy it early.
Yeah, and let's be honest. When I was coming up, I think it would have been $10 a module when I was in high school.
Yeah.
So we're talking $70. 40 is a way better price, but you get above that, we get into some of the best stuff here, and that is at the $60 tier, you're going to get both Volume 2 and our original Kickstarter Volume 1 adventures. Then going up from there, we just keep throwing more stuff on there. You get the adventures at the $100 level, but also we will turn you into an Enron NPC. And we'll make sure your PC shows up in an upcoming adventure. So
that's right. That's the whole bit, is you got to be in the adventure to be a real NPC.
Now also, you get a chance to meet online. I don't want anybody coming to my house. One of the writers from Dungeon Studios, who's going to work with you to develop your stat block and everything for your character, artwork and everything included. So for $100, that's not too bad. Not only do you get, obviously, adventures, so you get something to use, you end up being part of a module. I can tell you, as a young nerd, one of the things that really fired me up was the idea that someday, I might see my name on a book or a game product on a shelf and know that somebody else might buy it. And we're getting pretty close to that point, and I'm really fired up about that.
Pretty cool. That is pretty cool when you've played a game and you're that into it. And that's the thing, like I said at the beginning of the show, we're just fans. We enjoy it that much that, we're super involved.
Yep. And like we said,
share it,
and like we said in the last episode, we realize that people fall on a spectrum of it. Some people are creatives like us that are really driven to make the content, and some people are just consumers. Both ends are perfectly fine. We want everybody at our table, but this is a great opportunity if you are a consumer, and maybe you're never going to write a module that's not in your dreams. You can still find yourself contributing to these kind of products and be able to say, "Hey, you want to see something cool? Open up that module right there."
Yeah, definitely.
Check the NPC. Yeah, check the NPC section out. You recognize that guy, and your friends will be like, "That's awesome." It is. It's a great thing to get into and do. We have a couple other tiers here. Obviously, you can get you can get both adventure packs plus your NPC for just $10 or $20 more, which is again still a pretty good steal. And I believe there was some talk about other stretch goals and expanding things in here. So stay tuned. We may update the Kickstarter tiers. You may get more value for your buck. You may get more things or some stuff that you are more interested in. So,
and don't forget, go to our website, dungeonstudios.co.
Yep.
You can check out little previews there, little artwork. We have some merch there too to check out. I love that. I love those shirts and stuff.
Yeah, it's great. You get you get to check out some of the cool artwork, get inspired, and there are links there for not only can you see the the store, but links to the podcast, links to Dungeon Studios' other show, the Tabletop Cinema, which myself and I believe Doc have been on before.
And then, and don't forget, you can also subscribe for our newsletter there too. So
100%. And we do have a Patreon, like I said, for Dungeon Studios. You can get in there. You can help support us. Throw us $1, keep everybody going. You can join at different tiers. We have a whole team of people, and there is content there separate from everything else that we have talked about. I know, Doc, you've worked on some stuff for that. You get, you can go in there and you can get the Enron Chronicles. You can be part of the Patreon, and you can see adventures that are designed not just for Enron, but for any game. Generic stuff. You can see, our side quests and a bunch of other series. Doc, what have you worked on for the Patreon? I know you've been doing that.
We got some one-page adventures, which is like a map with some details on them, where you can just throw them right down and have you can have a one-shot right there. We have some encounters, just sort of throw them in to spice up your game. I have one right now where you know, no matter where you are, you come across this monolith in the forest and just sort of add some spice and creativity to your campaign. So there's lots of neat stuff we have. There's some interviews with artists and writers.
Yeah, I think mine's coming up in the December one.
I think you are the next interview, aren't you?
Maybe you get to hear even more of me running my yapper, which I'm sure everybody is super fired up for.
And then, of course, we got a monster and usually a magic item. I think there's a spell in there too. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. I apologize. I just realized I forgot to mute myself for a second there. I apologize if anybody heard the what I just did. I was getting a drink a little bit too fast. Hey, really quick, let me just going through the Facebook live feed. Thank you guys for sticking around with us. Let me answer a couple of questions. The tiers will be on Kickstarter. You'll be able to see all that stuff when we go live. I'm not sure if you can see them ahead of time. That is a producer Josh question. So feel free to throw me a message if there's somewhere you can see the tiers before the Kickstarter launches on Black Friday. And the other question that we got in here about what the stretch goals are going to be, I don't have that in my ad copy. I am not 100% certain, but if producer Josh wants to throw me some information, I'll be more than happy to read it on the podcast so you guys can get answers to your questions.
Yeah, he's got some time to get them to us too, because we were going to cover this other topic, right?
Yeah, I think so. I really want to. I mentioned before, really quick, that I like. Stretch goals updated in document. It's in there. Give me 1 second to refresh. I'm probably going to destroy the entire internet when I hit this button. Work, please work.
Roll a die. Roll a save. Roll a save.
Stretch goals. Hey, there we go. Oh, wow. Okay. See, look at all this cool stuff in here. See, I didn't hit the refresh button. I would have missed all this. Thank you, producer Josh. So, stretch goals. We have the Luhor, Leisure. I apologize for the pronunciation. I'm probably butchering that character's name. The Alchemist Cookbook, a supplement that's going to be available for our first stretch goal, I believe, at $2,000. We get to that point, we're going to throw this out there for everyone to get a hold of, which I believe, if I remember correctly, is going to be spells and items and other good stuff. Next up,
I believe there's some recipes too, like
some
cool kind of recipe stuff.
Like crafting stuff recipes, or like how to make a cheeseburger at home recipe.
No, like how to make a magic potion recipe.
Oh, nice.
Different animal creatures and put things together, and then it becomes a potion kind of thing.
Oh, I love it. Then we have our bonus encounter bundle at the next tier up 2,500. A collection of 10 encounters that you can add into any game. I personally do not like random encounters and rolling off tables, but I do like having pre-built full encounters that I can go through and say, this one makes sense in my game, I'm going to use this. I like that kind of stuff. These are things that I personally have. Looking at my bookshelf here, I have two things, supplement books that I've bought before, and one of them is a book of encounters. The other is a book of NPCs and characters, which I am a big fan of.
And these, we really too try to dress up like an SRD monster, so it's got a little more oomph to it, say, you come across a cockatrice and all a cockatrice eggs, and they all hatch right in front of you. So, kind of give it a little bit more of a twist than a regular encounter too. So that's
very nice. 3,000, we're going to expand the cookbook to include even more art and content. 3,500, we got our side quest bundle, which is what we were talking about. We're building some of those on the Patreon, but we hit this tier. More than happy to throw you guys some more stuff in its own separate thing. And then looks like we're at $5,000 as the backer's choice. I'm going to read this verbatim. I hope it's not anything crazy. But in return for this level of support, we will create an 8th adventure, and we will allow the backers to pick from several different prompts as to which one we will add. So I'm sure there'll be more information about that as time goes on. And I'm just going to guess. It's not like we hit 5,000 and we stop throwing stuff in there. I bet if we can get to 10 or higher, I'm sure we'll unlock more stretch goals. We will expand this, and
we have a lot of contacts. We have a lot of contacts, Dungeon Studios. So there'll be a lot available to us the more the Kickstarter moves.
Yeah, no, we're hoping to get some guests on the show coming up, including an entire band. Last week we played one of their videos. The tune is pretty catchy. Splintered Reality.
Splintered Reality, yeah.
Yeah, we're looking to have those guys on. We also have some other in-house writers, people that we have talked with, collaborated with, or work with us at Dungeon Studios. One of which is a professional DM and a streamer. I can't wait to get him on the show and talk to him. That's RKDM. We were in conversation with some of our other friends that have streaming things on here. I'm a huge horror fan, so we're hoping to get
get our friend Barry on, Barry the movie demon on with us. Yeah.
Or again, talking about back to the name thing, he has the coolest nickname ever. He's Hell's Historian. I love that shit. That's phenomenal. So all things we got coming up on the show. So remember, like, share, subscribe, throw us some money. We're poor. We need it. We appreciate it. But with that being said, I'm just going to quickly throw a little thing out there. We do not script this. I think everything that goes wrong at the start of every episode should definitely guarantee that we have no idea what we're doing. Two people talking. We don't edit these, and we're not following anything that's pre-written, except for the shameless plugs and ad copy stuff. I know this has come up. It's a hot button topic in a lot of places, and our second half topic here already started from a relatively simple comment and people taking different sides on an issue. So these are our opinions, and like I said, we're having a conversation. So it's not like we thought these out ahead of time. So if I say anything stupid, oh well, it is what it is. It's the internet. That's the beauty of it. But go ahead and hit me up. What do you want to talk about, Doc?
So it was 4 days ago. We have an article by Sean Murray in The Gamer. Give some credit where credit is due. And the article is talking about Dungeons & Dragons requiring a cultural consultant for every release following the Spelljammer controversy. And, if you're into gaming and you're familiar with old Spelljammers, I don't really want to go into that particular situation. But what I want to talk about is the end of this. It talks about here that the D&D head honcho, Christopher Perkins, has taken to the D&D blog and explains that they'll do better with future releases and that they're going to include an inclusion review process that will catch offensive contents before it can be published. Now, before I know you're going to go off on me, so before you do, it says, previously, inclusion reviews were done at the discretion of the product lead who identified which pieces of a product needed an outside inclusion review. The studio's new process mandates that every word, illustration, and map must be reviewed by multiple outside cultural consultants prior to publication. Now, the thing I don't get about this is, we're talking about fantasy worlds here. Where does a cultural consultant come in? I mean, should we have a fantasy consultant?
Well, I've ranted about this kind of stuff for a long time, and I'm going to do it again here. And I can already, in my mind, I just hear everyone going, "Oh no!" But really, what I got to say about this, I think, is relatively tame. I was hyping it up before the show, but I don't think anything I'm going to say is going to be super crazy. So.
Hit us. Come on.
No, I'm getting, it's dramatic. It's a pregnant pause. You got to give me. It's the theater nerd in me going on here.
Yeah, go ahead, theater nerd.
This is a topic that has driven me crazy for a long time, as it has come up, and I'm going to explain why. Anyone who has spent 5 seconds listening to Chris Perkins or any of the people from Wizards of the Coast, D&D, the design team, do you really think any of those people were trying to offend or bother somebody with their fantasy creation? Everyone looked at that and said, you know what, that's pretty cool. I like it. It's neat. And what kills me about this is that this is a clear example of people bringing their own baggage into something.
Well, yeah, and the funny thing is, this was written a long time ago. It's an homage to what was written a long time ago, and just updating it to today. It wasn't meant as like a shot at anybody.
No, and here's the thing. I got some specifics I want to throw into this just for context, right? I have been playing games and have been into fantasy and things since I was, I think, 3, if I remember correctly. I remember my parents taking me to the theaters to see Return of the Jedi. I vaguely remember Empire Strikes Back. So I was born the year Star Wars came out. Not a shock that it's my.
Gosh, this would be a whole nother discussion.
Well, not a shock that it's my favorite thing ever, right?
Okay.
So I went to see Return of the Jedi as a little kid, and I've been on this path forever. I have never, unless it was intended by the creator, looked at the orcs or the drow or any of those things and gone, oh yeah, yep, I see what you did there. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. I'm on board.
Exactly.
Right. And, so like never, right? And here's the thing. And here's the thing. I have had like slavers and slavery in my games for years. You know what that is, and they always are. They're the villains. They're the people that you go and overthrow. You set people. That's what heroes do.
Right.
And that is how it is. Now, there is some media that has that idea. I'm a big fan of Shadowrun, and one of the things. One of the things that they have in there is the awakened races and everything. People try to associate those with, real world cultures and whatnot, whatever. The movie Bright, which is one of my favorite ones on Netflix, which is basically just Shadowrun, which they don't, I don't know how they don't have, pay the rights for it, but they make it a point that the orcs in Bright, they do exactly what the real world has, they portray, they're in South Central Los Angeles, and the orcs are Latinos. That's what they are. That's clearly what you're intended to see, right? No. And they make a point how the police, the one character that is an orc and he's a cop, and he's turning his back on his people, and they have their whole culture thing. It's right out there in the open. That's the intention of the media, is for you to see that conclusion, because they're using it as a vehicle to tell a story and give you. You make it feel a certain way, but they also drop in there that some people have problems with them, but at the same time, over half the offensive lines in the NFL are made up of orcs because they're giant, strong, dense. They're super linemen, right? There's both sides of this kind of thing, but this has driven me crazy because it's people bringing their own baggage. So for those you youngins that aren't history people. One of the recent attacks that's come up in all of this stuff, the angles that they've tried to get in here and claim all this racist stuff is secretly dog whistled in the game, is the idea of orcs being an analog for Africans. Here's the thing. Tolkien created the orcs. I don't think there's anybody before him except for historical mythological sources, and even that I don't think there is. I might be wrong about that. I apologize if I am. But Tolkien was a veteran of World War I.
I was going to say everything. Most of his was based on
he swore up and down that he hates allegory, right? That nothing is allegorical. That's wonderful. I don't see how you can watch Lord of the Rings or read Lord of the Rings and not see the clear analogy between the industrialized war machine of the World War I German army and the orcs in Tolkien's writing. Yeah, exactly. So he swore, he would always say that he categorically detests allegory, but that's what I see. So that's like Germans. That's what the orcs. They can't be anything else. Now, again, Tolkien's a man of his times. Obviously, different world back in the 30s and 40s when he was writing this stuff. But that's the analogy that I see. It doesn't make sense to me. And again, do we really think that the convention nerds who have been playing war games forever decided to write Dungeons and Dragons and put in all these monsters because they were secretly making stabs at people because of because of their nefarious intent or affiliations. Yeah, sure, it totally could happen, and I 100% have been around people and gamers that run the spectrum of all manner of stupid opinions and nasty ideas. I'm not saying it isn't possible. I'm not saying
it's funny. It's funny because years ago it was Satan,
right. Yep.
Now it's racism. Like,
yeah.
What's it going to be? In another 30 years, what is it suppressing?
Yeah, 100%. And what bugs me the most about it is this idea that everything before now was horrible, but now these people are all amazingly perfect. They're the best who's ever lived. They're the best. No, like
it's sort of the like everybody gets a trophy kind of thing. It kind of
I don't even see. Here's the thing. I don't even know if it's that. It's I think it's people. Maybe their heart's in the right place. Maybe they're trolls. Who knows? But it just it gets me because, like I said, you have to bring that, and I'm not saying that people aren't like that, and I'm not saying that. Again, looking at the swath of gamers that you've run into in your life, that there isn't some level of gatekeeping, but I would never in a million years. I don't think it's anything intentionally built in. Originally, and definitely not anything from the 5e from the current D&D team.
Right.
I can't wrap my head around that. But go ahead.
No, I think the other thing that's really big here. I think this is big for the Kickstarter and the independent creators now, because now they can create something, and a consumer can buy what they want. And this is sort of a line that sort of gets blurry, because what if you want the campaign that's, the Roman slaves and the, and if that's what you want to play, that's your right to play that. I don't think you can take that away from people either.
Yeah. Well, I was gonna go ahead.
Oh, no, you go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, I read that and I'm like, all right, cool. I can't wait I can't wait. Did you hear the next campaign setting that they've announced? It's called Blah. And you can be any combination of blah and blah you want, and your blahs live in blah, and there's no conflict or any strife. But if there is, the worst it gets is that your blah becomes meh, and then you have to struggle to become blah again. And I've had this conversation with people too. It's like there needs to be some conflict in the game, and I have a whole thing about the death of the hero narrative I started talking about. We'll save it for another show, but I don't get the shift in philosophy where it went from being a heroic fantasy to being a bunch of people just randoming around. Well,
but here's the thing too. It could be anything. There's another thing. I sort of I guess I have a question.
Okay.
So when someone says my game is LGBTQ friendly, right? And I probably didn't say all the letters right because of my disability. My brain doesn't work right. But that's meaning like what my pronoun is or whatever is friendly at the table. But does that mean the content at the table is LGBTQ friendly? Like, is that like my table is LGBTQ friendly, but my content is rated R? Like how does that all work?
I think the biggest thing with what you're saying is that I don't know that they necessarily understand how that works, because okay. I can tell you that phrase and what you get for a game is probably different between every group and table and whatever.
Right, that's what I mean. Like I see that phrase a lot in all these web pages and everything.
Yeah.
Like, what do they mean? I don't mean to be derogatory. I want to know what that means, but
yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, I think the reality of it is this: that not every player has things they like and things they don't like. They have things they're okay with and things they're not okay with. Every DM runs their game the way they want to run their game. They include what they want to include. They leave out what they want to leave out. Right. That is the idea that you need an inclusion consultant is madness, because it is a fantasy game that is open to everyone.
And
it can be whatever you want it to be. You see the jokes on the internet all the time that, I'm running my game and my players are a bunch of 9-year-olds. So every monster, it becomes a exercise in how are we going to turn it into our pet. That's what they want to do. Great.
Exactly.
Awesome.
That's what they want to do.
And if you want mature content, if you want edgy content, that's entirely up to you. And yeah, I am certainly positive that there are people out there that if you listen to their games and saw the things that they did, you would clearly know, you would know what's up. Again, that's just the sad reality of the world. Humans are messy. People suck, and you're going to get that. But I think by and large, it is not the majority of gamers, because let's be perfectly honest. When all of us old people came up playing the game, you didn't talk about it. It was a nerd thing. You'd get ridiculed for it. You'd get bullied for it, which is horrible.
True. No, that's absolutely true.
But, like, we would have loved to have anybody who wanted to come play the game with us. We didn't give a shit because a lot of times you didn't have people. There weren't groups like that. And now it's exploded and it's become mainstream, and that isn't really a problem anymore. And this feels a lot like people looking to have a problem with something that probably really isn't a problem.
Yeah, I'm just intrigued to see, how they move forward. Are prices of products going to go up if,
Oh, of course. I will say this. They would do better focusing on getting, they would do better focusing on getting a good writing consultant, more than anything else.
I already told you what they're going to do. They're not going to worry about Dungeons and Dragons now. They're just going to apply the rules to everything in the world. I'm waiting for Scooby-Doo Dungeons and Dragons to come out.
Oh, of course. If you get, capitalism always wins. If you can make a buck on it, it's good. Yeah, but to kind of close this topic out, as we're late in the evening, and thank you guys for hanging out.
Yeah, thanks.
My thought on it is this, and I'll use a sports analogy because I'm a nerd, right? The same controversy has gone through the professional sport, or has gone through the sports world before it's gotten to D&D. And I always counter it with this. There's a reason why every team in the NFL isn't the Washington football team, the New York football team, the Buffalo football team, right? They're named for things that have a meaning and a purpose. And many of them, typically with the animals and whatnot, they're named for things that are supposed to be inspiring. Not that I'm gonna be naive enough to say that the term Redskin isn't offensive to some people. I'm sure it is. I don't doubt that whatsoever. Do you really think that when they were naming the football team, said, you know what would be really cool? I want my team to be named after this after a racist joke because those people are pathetic and awful. Ha ha ha! Isn't it funny? No, they named it after that because they were trying to pull the inspiration from the Warrior. That's why you have the Braves, the Seminoles. I mean, again, Cowboys and Indians. That is as American as it gets. It's burned into your. That's why we have the Dallas Cowboys, because someone saw that and said, "Okay, this is great." Now, look, I'm not ignorant. I know what the Cleveland Indians logo looked like in the '80s. Probably a bad idea, but at the end of the day, nobody named their team after something that was going to be a mockery, a joke, or a dig at somebody. They named it to be inspirational. Orcs in D&D, orcs in fantasy were created because somebody went through a war with an enemy that's very similar to the way the orcs are. That's where that came from. The drow thing, I mentioned it and somebody threw it in the comments. The whole thing about drow and changing it. Oh, that is a clash of game design philosophy, but
Well, again, it's positive for the independent. It's positive for the independent creators, and that's the way I got to look at it. I'm just, sorry that the game has to go that way, and people are putting up red flags for silly stuff. That's
and again, not to get into another controversy, but there was a similar thing with Gygax's kid and their company. There's a whole legal thing going on with that I'm definitely not going to get into. And now here's the thing. I don't I didn't get too deep into it because I'm an adult and I have a real life. So I don't have all the time in the world to dig into nonsense. People are mad at him. Okay, great. All right. It is what it is. Maybe he is all the horrible things that they say. Okay. You know what? If their content reflects that, then you have a choice to make as a consumer. That's the way it is.
And that's what it really comes down to, too. It's your choice as a consumer, even what's on the television, when you're choosing what you're watching or what you're paying for.
Oh, it's like the Chick-fil-A thing or Hobby Lobby. My wife won't go to Hobby Lobby. Okay, that's cool. That's your choice.
Yeah.
I'm not, and I'm not, I'm completely, I could care less because I don't go to craft stores usually, as far as anyone knows. But all right, it's my wife's choice. I'm not gonna.
You're going there for some terrain.
Oh yeah, I'm a super nerd, but
yeah.
But no, but I don't give her grief for that. I know people that specifically go to Chick-fil-A because of their politics, and people who specifically don't. Okay. I'm not interested in paying $9 for a crappy chicken sandwich, so whatever. I don't care, but I get it. But that is the way. We're all adults, and I've had people. I'll give you guys as we're getting ready to wrap up here because I know it's getting late. I'm going to throw out there a little game story to wrap up my thoughts on this on this whole thing. And really quick, if anything we've said offends people, it is what it is. These are our opinions, and. Some people like them, some people won't. But again, just like I think with the team names, just like I think with the Hadozi, just like I think with Tolkien's orcs, none of those things were done with the intention of hurting, harming, or putting anybody down. That's not the intent. It's not my intent to make anybody feel bad. My intent is to say shit on the internet that I want to, have conversations about nerdy stuff, and you can't fix dumb without talking about it and sorting it out.
Well, and my closing thought to that too is, we're far more being existentialists trying to project positive things into the future than being absurdists with saying that, someone did this on purpose to hurt somebody else. I think that's the big thing there.
Yeah. So my closing thought, just to wrap this topic up and move on to our final shameless plug before we take off for the evening, is I ran into a conflict along these lines in one of the games I started up locally, right? And what it came down to was the kind of game that I run versus the kind of game the person wanted to play in, right?
Yeah.
And when the breakup came, I took it very hard because I think I'm perfect. But they explained very cleanly, and I had missed it, that this was an issue. And they said, I respect you as a storyteller, but I don't want to play in a game where I constantly feel like my character's going to die. Okay, I get it, man. I don't want to play in a game where I know my character's not going to die. We are different people. You can play the game the way you want with the people you want. I play with the way that I want. Table's not for everybody. It is what it is. And it is this thing. I'm not gonna. I don't go around shitting on that player and telling them how dumb they are. I don't do that. That's perfectly fine. I'm the guy that buys or is gonna buy the. Sorry, laughing there. I'm the guy who's going to buy Gotham Knights and play it on Nightmare mode from moment one and get killed 197,000 times before I remember how to do a 3-hit combo. And I'm going to break my controller. That's how I play the game. I have friends that buy it and put it on easy mode because they want to get the story as fast as possible. I'm not saying they're wrong for doing it. It's perfectly okay. So for those of you guys that stuck around, we're going to hit the closing segment here. I really appreciate everyone that's listening to this. If you're listening at home, on your favorite podcast site, whether you get us from Spotify or Apple or Amazon, thanks for listening. Check us out, join our groups, support us. Look at the Patreon. Look to the website dungeonstudios.co.
And remember, always be ready to roll initiative.
Yeah, I like it. But back our Kickstarter, contribute, keep listening. We thank you very much. And my final thought, I keep working on this phrasing. One of these times I'm gonna get it right.
I'm gonna final thought like 3 times, dude.
I do. It's late, man. I'm tired.
It's just gotta be final.
Oh God.
No matter where you go, Merwin, there you are.
Yeah, I like to talk. So just remember, guys, we play role-playing games because they are games without limits. So why listen to conversations that are any different? Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.